Good morning, students. Today we are going to see yet another topic, feminism, with the context of a text which is written by Ellen Showalter, 20 years on, a literature of their own revisited. So this is what the text we are going to see. So before getting into it, I would like to tell you about feminism, a short intro about it, and then we shall get into Ellen Showalter and then the text what she has written. So let me get into feminism now. We might have listened to this word feminism because it is a buzzword, I would tell, right? So wherever we introduce ourselves as a student of English literature, we come to know that we belong to or we acclaim ourselves as feminist. This is what an unconscious belief we used to get from people, apart from how we are good in pronouncing language and all other sorts. So I would like to tell what feminism is. So in the introductory of feminism, we come to know the literary and the historical developments in feminism. So as we know, we have three waves in feminism. So the first wave, second wave, third wave, and the fourth wave. So here in the first wave feminism, it begins from 19th century and then it prolonged 20th century. So here we have focus on primarily on women's legal and political rights, and especially the right to vote, own property, and access education. And the prominent figures during this first wave feminism are Mary Wollstonecraft, and she, through her work, Vindication of Rights of Women, 1792, through this work, she acclaimed what feminism exactly is. And next comes John Stuart Mill, and through his work, The Subjugation of Women, in 1869, and he acclaimed what feminism is. So throughout the first wave of feminism, we come to know certain achievements are there during this part of phase. So the key achievements will be women's suffrages in many Western countries. So this is what the achievement. And the second wave of feminism. During the second wave of feminism, and it begins from 1960s to 1980s. So here the main focus is on the issues of sexuality, family, and workplace discriminations, reproductive rights, and cultural representations. So here we come to know there is a slogan during the second wave of feminism: the personal is political. And the predominant writers here is Simone de Beauvoir and Betty Friedan and Kate Millett. So these are the few feminist writers we could find in the second wave feminism. And here this wave challenged not only the legal but also the social and the cultural inequalities. So I would say that this second wave of feminism, it played a very important role, and this is an exact place where we have got the metamorphosis of feminism, even feminism too. And we come to know the third wave of feminism, and it happened in 1990s and early 2000s. And there is an emergence in terms of critique of limitations of second wave feminism, and particularly it focused on white and that too in middle class women. So here the emphasis is more on intersectionality and then on gender with race, class, sexuality, and ethnicity. And here the predominant writers are Bell Hooks and Judith Butler and then Chandra Thapade. And then here they highlighted the inclusivity regarding the post-colonial theory and the queer theory. And the last wave, the fourth wave feminism, it begins from 2010 and till the present time. We call this as fourth wave feminism. And here the feminism strongly linked itself with digital media and online activism. We might have heard of the popular movement called Me Too movement. So that came during 2010. It focused on combating sexual harassment, body shaming, gender violence, and supporting the Me Too movement. And here we don't have people like, or in order to tell these are the predominant writers, but then many of the writers here, through supporting these movements, they are been in the series of the fourth wave feminism. So it advocates the inclusivity and then gender fluidity and dismantling systematic patriarchal in global way. So these are the basic idea we need to have regarding feminism and its four waves. So I would tell that these are the historical development. And theoretically, when we put forward this feminism, we'll be having liberal feminism, radical feminism, Marxist, socialist feminism, psychoanalytic feminism, postmodern and post-colonial feminism. So these are the theoretical context where feminism explored itself in a proper way, where it can be incorporated in any of the literary works. So this has explored, feminism has explored in literature and culture too. And when do we, as a literary people, when do we start noticing this feminism is through the work of Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own. It came in 1929. It talks about or stressed the need of women's creative space, while contemporary voices in India, you might have heard of Arundhati Roy. She has talked a lot on it, right? And this is very important, which means women's creative space is very important. So we are going to get into how Elaine Showalter, and she has explored herself as one among the writers. So regarding Elaine Showalter, let me introduce her first. And she is an American feminist critic. And interestingly, we have the world always goes on with the coinages of words only with the male writers. But here we have Elaine Showalter, and she has coined the term called gynocritic, right? So this is one such term. It talks more about the need of women writers, and it entirely talks about the exploration of women being a writer and the importance of it. And she is a known specialist in Victorian literature, and then the end of that particular century. And I would tell that only few writers will get an opportunity to explore their own writing in a period where it gets a transition. So likewise, Elaine Showalter is one such. She has explored her writing where a century ends and then it gets on to a metamorphosis in literature too. And here I have mentioned few of the writings of Elaine Showalter. In a chronological order, this might be helpful for you in order to remember to clear your exams too. So let me note down or point down some of the works here. A Literature of Their Own, which came in 1977. This is what we are going to see today. And Towards a Feminist Poetics, and this came in 1979. And I would tell a very important work, right? I'm just jumping to Inventing Herself, and which came in 2001, and then the last one, A Jury of Her Peers, which came in 2009. So the last two works, I would tell, being a writer or being the explorer of different themes through different research, we can take these two works in incorporating those ideas into any of a feminist literary works there. So that is all about Elaine Showalter, and then next we shall go for the particular work, before getting into the tabular column here, what you have here, we shall get into this particular work, what it is going to talk, right? So, a literature of their own, British women novelist from Bronte to Doris Lessing, right? This work came in 1977. So this particular work, right, in this study, she mapped out a female literary tradition in English literature, and then she traced its development across centuries. So this is what she has done here. So through this essay, she revisited her earlier arguments even upon the growth of the feminist criticism, and then she re-examined the ways in which women's writing had been understood, how it has been understood and how it has been studied and institutionalized in the literary studies. So this revisiting, right, it is not just about the self-reflection, and it talks also about the critical landmarks what we have in the feminist literary theories. So in this work, right, which I have told you that the first it got published in 1977. It is a sort of a breaking, right? It is sort of a groundbreaking because it asserts that women writers had a distinct literary tradition here we could find. So on that note, she found, or she has framed, three important phases. That is what I have mapped it here. The first is feminine phase, and second is feminist phase, and third one is female phase. So what she has identified here as a three-stage model of women's writing. So this is an identification. It is not a discovery. I would tell that this is an invention she has brought in. It categorizes the way how female writers have got into the transition of being a writers throughout the centuries. So the first phase is feminine phase, and it begins from 1840 to 1880. So this talks about how women writers imitate the male writers and internalized male standards. Personally, I have an opinion of setting out a high standard for women that's in the hands of women, and not by comparing themselves or comparing herself with any other. So likewise, this seemed to be a contradictory one, but I would tell that this is a common notion whenever there is going to be a new form of write-up or a new form of beginning. We always used to imitate. That is what happened in the feminine phase, I would tell. So there, women writers, they started imitating the male writers and internalizing the male standards. So imitation is seen to be the predominant one here regarding the social norms also. So here we can take an example, writers of Jane Austen and Bronte sisters and Eliot. So these are the writers who even had their not their original name, but then they had their male name as a pen name for them. And next comes the feminist phase, which started exploding in 1880 to 1920. And here the women writers started protesting against the male literary and the social standard, I would tell. So the very name, she fixed it as feminine, feminist, and then the female. So you can just look into the transition which happened within the three names. So where get the completion here is with the last phase, the female. So feminine is a sort of an, you can take this as an adjective, and feminist, though the word belonged to the category of making itself as a noun, I would tell that you can again take it as an adjective. And whenever the phase, female writers are entering into the female phase, I would tell that here we are getting the completion, and so the last phase, the female phase, seem to be the completed one, I would tell. Okay, let us get back to feminist phase. So here women women writers, they protested against male literary and the social standards. So here, the advocacy of women's autonomy and their own rights are being discussed a lot here. So that is where we have Virginia Woolf and Mansfield and Richardson. So these are the predominant writers during the feminist phase. And the last phase will be the female phase. And here it talks about women and her self-discovery, expressing their own identity through their writing. So this is what we get during this period, and it begins from 1920 till, which means you call it as a contemporary time, till present. So through this model, right, through this particular model, Elaine Showalter emphasized on how feminism has taken a transition from one phase to the another. So this model, it becomes the central towards the study of women's literature and how it inspired generations of feminist scholars. So this is also an understanding we get through the three phases where Elaine Showalter has put it down in a right way. And then the next would be, as you see, what are all the main arguments Elaine Showalter is revisiting. And then it is a sort of a re-examination, I would tell. More than revisiting, it is a re-examination. So by the late 1990s, right, the feminist literary criticism, it had expanded far beyond the concern which it had in 1970s, because here the women writers had entered university curricula, and then the feminist theory, and then the feminist theory had been institutionalized in academia, and new theoretical developments were there, which means the post-structuralism, deconstruction, post-colonialism, and queer theories. So I would tell that it has got, or it had reshaped the landscape of the literary studies. So we have discussed a lot on these theories in details in the class. So I hope there is no point on telling or defining all the theories here. And Showalter, through this, she reflected on both the progress and the challenges that feminist criticisms faced after the 2 decades of the growth. And then here she acknowledges her original model, right, from the starting point. It talks about the historical limitations, and then how it is insufficient, all those. And then the key aspect here for Elaine Showalter to revisit is her recognition of need of inclusivity and multiplicity. So the book, when it came in 1977, it focused primarily on the British women novelists, and particularly the white middle class authors. And during 1990s, this feminist criticism had shifted towards acknowledging the significance of race, ethnicity, nationality, and sexuality in shaping the women literary expressions. So she defines that there is a need to recognize the distinct female literary tradition. And then there are importance of broadening the literary canon beyond elite authors too. So that is also one of the concern where Elaine Showalter had regarding revisiting this. And one more, writers such as Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, and a few of the other writers, right, they had transformed feminist literary studies into a more diverse, and then it became global, and it is intersectional field. So here she admits, Elaine Showalter admits that her earlier works, right, it didn't had a sufficiently addressed these sorts of dimension where it has to have emphasis more on the importance of broadening feminist literary criticism beyond the Euro-American canon. So there is a need of it, and engagement with the new cultural, racial, and the class perspectives in literature, she found it is necessary. So these are the main arguments you could find in where within this particular part of an essay where Ellen Showalter has talked about. And then the next one will be lasting impact. So before getting into this, I would like to tell a few more things regarding an important point where it is discussed in this particular essay. Ellen Showalter's reflection towards institutionalization of feminist criticism, which means what she had begun as a radical intellectual and the political movement during 1970s, right, which had there, and by 1990s, and it became established as an academic field with its own journals, conferences, and university courses. So while this institutionalized or institutional recognition had in victory towards feminist scholarship, Ellen Showalter warns that it might be a risk, right, turning towards feminist criticism into a closed discipline, which may detach from the larger social and the political struggle, right? So this is one of the important points she had in her discussion. And then there is an urge towards critics where they have to remain alert towards the issues of accessibility and then the relevance and the political engagement, and ensuring that the feminist literary studies, right, it continued to speak to the lives of the reality, and then rather it talks more about confining itself with the academic genres. So always the notion of the feminism or the theory, and then the notion of this feminism into any of the literary work, right, it couldn't stop itself from talking more about the reality. And it is not just a theory which stops itself into a particular boundary. It goes beyond that. It talks more about the reality. And here, as I've told you that it is more into the stream of academia. And Ellen Showalter, she also reflect on the development of feminist theory itself. So during 1970s, the emphasis was more on recovering lost women writers, right, building a female literary tradition, and then she challenges the male canon. So during 1990s, the theoretical approach, however, it was on the post-structuralism and deconstruction. I would tell that the deconstruction had complicated itself by questioning the identity, the authorship, and representation. So there, the feminist critics were increasingly, and they were more skeptical towards universalizing claims about where the women writings are, towards women writings. So apart from that, instead they examine the multiplicity and the culture and how it has been complex in its own way. And Ellen Showalter, when she revisits that, she recognizes this particular shift, and she encourages a more nuances and flexible understanding of the women's literature. So the significance of this particular essay or particular books, it lies it lies in self-critical or self-critical dimension it has shown. So Elaine Showalter, she doesn't treat her early works as a definite, as a definitive authority, but it is a part of an ongoing conversation in feminist criticism. This is what we would tell. And by revisiting the arguments, what she had, or an understanding what she had prior, it gives in a way to understand more about the theories. And then she talks more on the impact of this particular feminism, right, and what it has an impact towards global feminism. So she had seen this as an enormous globalization of feminist criticism. So women writers from the region where we never expect women writers from, which means from Caribbean, Africa, South Asia, and a few other regions, right? We call it as an Anglophone canon, right? And the post-colonial feminist theories, where we have particularly about Gayatri Spivak's "Can the Subaltern Speak?" This is a well-known text, and it challenges the assumption what we had towards the Western feminist criticism. So, and why I'm talking about all those is how it make Elaine Showalter to revisit her own way of understanding towards feminism. And here the feminist, she has also revisited the British women tradition. You can't have a particular region of women's tradition and studies in an isolated way. It has to be entangled with empire, colonialism, and transnational exchanges. So no other study in a way can be studied or understood in it in an isolation way. It has to be entangled with many ways. So this is one of the point she has arrived when she start revisiting into a literature of their own. And this has given her an act of rethinking the boundaries of women writers. And one more was also there, from marginality to mainstream. So this is one of the paradoxes where Elaine Showalter has highlighted in her work, right? The feminist criticism, it talks about the radical outsiders and how the projects are being there. So these are the discourses she could discuss within this particular work. So in order to talk about the lasting impact she has left out, I would like to conclude the legacy she has discussed within a literature of their own. So this one particular point, right, how she make it as a self-critic, being a self-critic, she has celebrated the notion of feminist criticism. It must remain self-reflexive. And women literature is not a static one. It has to evolve, and it is an evolving field. And then the last one will be it is to give it as a global stature, and it is intersectional perspective has to be there. So these are the essential qualities which has been discussed here through the writings of Elaine Showalter. So I hope I have given everything in a nutshell of a big book, and thank you.